game, it might be a third-person game, or it might be in some more perspectives depending on your requirements. So in this example, I try to illustrate a perspective which is not real but common in most of the game scenarios. It's a top-down view, but it contains a false perspective. So if you see that the horizon as well as the path and so much more, all of these things are seen from dead top. You could make out that the ground is completely flat. It's not angular, it's not ending it somewhere. You don't see the horizon line dividing between sky and the surface. But the assets, the objects, for example, the characters, the buildings, the houses, the props, you see much more of them. You do not see them from top angle, and this camera angle is working for me. But it is absolutely important for me to rightly illustrate this out in an art Bible document, so that when my team works on this game and I expect them to design characters or make the environment prop or make the actual map, they are totally sure of how to approach this. I do not want someone of the team member to probably do a very top angle of a house or a building, because you would not see or understand what that house is. So some information and some sketches done in your art Bible document actually really helps in handling these issues. Next is color palette. What color palette is you would do some amount of exploration of color for your game, and that might set the whole tone and the message that you want to communicate through your art. So colors play a very big role altogether, and they really make your art have a true definition and come out different from the rest of the competitor games that you are probably trying to compare with. And what you normally do is, like in this example, I'm doing an endless runner, and my short top here is it's a pirate-based game. All right, so the girl on the right is the character art. She is the character who will continue to run, and she might run over on the bridges around on the sea, or probably on ship decks or on islands or similar stuff. And there are some creatures as well as normal human characters who she's supposed to encounter. This visual is not done in the intention of speaking about proportions, anatomy, or detail. This is only done to illustrate the art style with regards to how the color scheme has to come out. So this is a very quick drawing that was created. I think that the development time of this particular visual, not on the character on the right, but the center one, was probably done in about 2 to 3 hours. So what you would do is simply open up Photoshop, set up a canvas of your game device size, maybe double of it. Just quickly pick up any of those lesser minute brushes, like probably you can add some charcoal brushes. Charcoal brushes are really good to experiment around, or maybe some watercolor brushes, and just play around. So try to do some mashup of the scheme of the game that you are trying to create. Let the colors flow in. You can always do some adjustments later on. I mean, like in my personal experience, I don't know how many of the rest of you might agree on this, but I'm not always so totally clear that what are all colors am I going to use and what should be the color scheme of the game by simply picking up swatches. I do not do that. I literally start with a visual, I start painting it, I play around, I try to see which one is working, which one is not, and therefore I conclude a palette which is seen on the left. So it's completely okay if you are not unable to pick up a palette at the very beginning of doing an art style. Next is environment and atmosphere. So your game contains character, and also it contains the environment. And the environment is also supposed to complement and work along with the function of your gameplay. So to demonstrate this, I'm using an example for a game that we did for Super Psych games, which is yet another bird game. In this game, there is a major amount of action-packed gameplay which is supposed to happen in the front of the, on the foreground, where these cables and the lights are, and the background is therefore only there for filling up the entire interface. It doesn't interact, it doesn't help in the gameplay altogether. And therefore, it was very important that the background doesn't overpower or conflicts or make the game difficult to understand or experience in any way. You didn't want the birds which are on the front of the screen to not to read, because the game actually expects you to save on the bird. You do not want to die, let them die. The current is also very spontaneous. The games get difficult in a little while. And therefore, what I did was, so if you look closely, there are about 5 rows of cables, and the horizon line has been kept around on the 4th cable. So nearly around on the 4th cable. In the first example, it's slightly lower than the 4th, and in the second example, it's slightly above the 4th cable. And the reason of doing this is so that the environment doesn't feel any busy, like it doesn't clutter the whole scene, and it's much more easy for simply read the characters very well on the top rows, and on a slightly compromising basis on the lower ground. So this experiment was really helpful to us. We also tried pushing the horizon line a little more further toward the 5th row, but then it started to feel quite empty. So probably the 4th row was literally a very good balance for the art side. And especially the color scheme that has been used out here perfectly works with many colors of the birds. So the game features about 6 birds, and they are of different color. But even if there were maybe at least like 20 colorful birds, you could have still spotted them between the environment. So the small snippet that you see on the very right, there's one single bird which is done in many colors, and you can still read out all of those birds in a single background. So this is really something which is serving the purpose and therefore beneficial and useful. Next comes texture. So texture is equally important along with how the colors or the treatment is supposed to be delivered. These days, people have started to go experimental. They want their game to look unique, and the whole pattern of using the same style in those animation days, simply working in Flash and putting up flat colors or maybe one tone or two tone is not coming around so revolutionary. It's not being so engaging or innovative, and therefore people are trying to devise new methods of treating their art, and textures is something which is quite handful and useful. This example is for a social game that we are working on. This is a 3D game, and what you see here is a concept art for those assets that we are developing. This game is based on a beach theme. So basically whole of the assets are resorts and houses around on the beach, and the color scheme and the treatment and the textures that you see out are laid out here on some of these assets. On the bottom you will see some progression of the textures. On the last one there are some wood textures, and then there are some stone textures and thatch textures on the very left. Altogether, this identification, this experimentation is something that was taken care at the Art Bible step in-house, and this served as a foundation for the rest of the artists to basically get to understand how the rest of the assets are supposed to be created. So we tried around with some of the houses that you see here. They were later on made in 3D, they were placed in the engine, and therefore we discovered how are they coming along. Next is user interface. So along with the gameplay atmosphere, user interface plays an equally important role to set up and complete the game altogether. And to demonstrate this, I have brought an example of another Super Psych games that we are currently making an art for, Catcher in the Sky. It might be released in probably in about 2 months time. It's currently in development, and some of the examples are here for the user interface for the game. So this game uses a monochrome setting with minimalist art right in front of it. It's detailed, but it's flat. So the shapes and the silhouette is what defines the structure of the, so it's also space-based, so things are like rocket and asteroids and objects of them are being developed. And the user interface that you see around is very well complementing the rest of the gameplay that we were trying to achieve. So all of those motifs, the kind of symbols, the kind of shapes that you need to use is something you can experiment around and include in your art Bible, making the user interface guys more comfortable and understand the kind of style that we are trying to aim for. So apart from the art style, it's also important to list out the technical guidelines for the artist to understand how the assets are supposed to be developed. So game development is a totally entirely technical scenario. Our artists are expected to be at least 20-30% strong with their technical understanding, while being artistic by about 60 to 70%, because it's not an animation scenario where you'll simply render a AVI or MPEG and deliver it to client. You are expected to create engine ready assets, and there are so much more technical things to be taken care of, and those things are very important to be contained in a technical document along with the art Bible. So in this case, on the sprites, how are the sprites supposed to be created, whether they are in 1K texture or 500 by 500 texture, how should the labeling of those assets should be. You would define a guidelines, should you use the naming convention where all capital letters are there or small letters, underscores, how should the folders be structured, how should they delivered in sprite sheets. So all of the technical information is usually expected to be identified for a smoother production, and this is something which is included in a technical guideline. Also, there's something called mood boards. What mood boards are is a collage of various references from movies to games to comics to illustrations to photographs. What you would do is you will complete a page with a compilation of so much of these references, which basically gives a hint and the idea of how the game should feel like. So this example illustrates some amount of images out here, and they are trying to communicate the message of the look and feel which is desired for the game. And it's okay to use some art for which is basically from existing games to include in this. Few of the important things which is necessary when you are creating an art Bible is that please remember that artists will not wade through a lot of text. They won't really go through a big amount of 20 pages of document. I have seen this practically. I have known artists who are good readers, but then again, I have seen that many of the information gets lost, even if I am completing a 20 page of document and then giving it to them. So always use images as an example. It's much more easier, convenient to understand. Try to combine examples of different images to communicate your message. Maybe you might not be able to find a perfect example. It's okay, you can probably club up 2 examples. For example, if you're trying to have a game which is probably in the direction of simplicity of art, like in Little Big Planet karting, but you are trying to keep your color more on the colorful side, for example, Subway Surfer, stuff like this. It's okay if you are not unable to find a perfect example. You can just put those 2 images and write down a small text at the bottom of it that create an art style which is simple, like how Little Big Planet characters work, but have the color palette more in Subway Surfers or Candy Crush kind of domain. Also, you would try to prefer to keep your format which is friendly to your team. You can have a PDF if you are working in a paperless environment. You can have printed documents to be circulated to your team. You can create presentations which people might want to go through, or you can host your content on some HTML pages which are linked, and therefore like it makes the navigation more easier for complicated art documents where things are like connected from here and there. So it's totally okay. You are free to plan out your version of document in the way you want. Also try to version your document. Maybe you might be creating a version 1.0 and then you make some art decisions at a later phase. You would want to update your art document. You can probably name it 1.1 or 1.2 and you would know how the document is progressing and which one is the latest one. Try to caption your image. Even if your images are perfect example of what you're trying to communicate, some of the artists might not get why that particular image is in the art document. Just a simple sentence at the bottom of that image will help a lot. Also source your document. whatever content that is not exclusive to you, not created by you, probably have been pulled out from internet, probably from someone else's portfolio. Please try to credit the person in this document itself. If in case if the document doesn't belong to Creative Commons licenses, like for example, if you're going through Behance, and there's a symbol on the right of most of the artworks, which basically list out the permissions associated with those images, whether you can use them or you are not at all allowed to use them. So go through those licenses. You can probably get in touch with the source, the creator of those documents, tell them that why you are trying to put this image in your presentation, take the permissions from them, and therefore go about this. So this is something which is a practice which is expected when we are creating this document. One another important thing is, if in case if you do not have any art background and you still want to create an art Bible, how do you go about this? You should go through some good references in order to complete your document. There's this website called palettefx.com. What this website does is, it's a simple page where you just browse an image and it breaks it down and splits it into a color palette. Actually very helpful, because probably you might be having something in your mind. I want to have a game which have a limbo kind of setting, or maybe a Bastion kind of setting, or maybe a Rayman Origins kind of setting, but you are unable to decide how should I approach the color palette, how should those color palette look like. You can probably take the help of these websites in order to arrive at some of the direction. There's also Color Scheme Designer, which is a website which lets you play around with a color palette on a color wheel and play around between warm colors and cold colors and arrange and probably experiment and come up with some color schemes of your own. Pinterest is a great platform to probably get some good references from. I'm there on Pinterest. You can also join Pinterest, and there are some great boards on game art that you can continue to follow in order to learn more about different variety of game art styles that people have been creating. Behance is a great source. DeviantArt is another one. So try to have these in your morning breakfast routine and put them in your daily activities. Like, you can also add those apps in your smartphone for a regular check. Also, if in case if you need a head start, and if you're like after this session is through, you really want to create an art Bible, well, you totally forgot how to go about this, what all did I talk about. So just drop a mail to me at hello@pencilati.com, and we have an art Bible template with us that we can share with you. So you can simply have that, so it's in PSD format as well as PSD format, PDF format. We can share that document with you, and you can use the layout and the template to start developing your own art Bible. So this is something which is also that can be done. So thank you so much. Is there any questions from your side? Yeah.
Sometimes, especially in the terms of mobile user interface for games, there might be, a colorful image results in increase of size of the image.
Colorful image what?
If we use more colors, the size of image would be more. Sometimes
size of images will be more. Yeah.
Size. So how to get rid of this kind of?
See, because colors contain information, and therefore the PNGs that you will export out of a colorful setting will definitely lead out to a higher size. So I totally agree to you on this. The optimization solutions are not much apart from smartly breaking down your assets by merging the components which are probably not going to make much sense if they are layered out. For example, when you're splitting your background, probably you can do a little more research and explore around and play around to see what can I simply put as a single image at the backdrop and only use a few more elements in the foreground to create a good sense of depth and composition while still not splitting everything into unique elements. Also, some engines basically let you color the objects right inside the engine instead of exporting some images. So that can be done as well. If your artwork supports flippability, you can also start to use half of the image into your engine and flip it around. So these things can be done.
Hello. Here.
Yeah.
Hi. I'm Babu. I'm a producer at a company called WOI. I wanted to know your thoughts on, in the last few years, say 5 or 6 years on mobile, you've seen different design trends, art trends that have phased in and out, you know, like 8-bit, and then you've got this monochromatic thing going on with Limbo and Contre-jour and stuff. I wanted to know your opinion on whether it's good for a new game to adopt something that's popular in the market, or whether it's better for us to maybe go innovate in terms of art design.
It's a good question. My understanding is that art styles do play a very important role altogether to make your game stand out, and that's actually your first portfolio for anyone to probably play a game around for about 2-3 minutes at the very start. And therefore, it's actually quite helpful to have a variety of art styles in your portfolio, or create a unique art style for your game. 8-bit is the scenario that you're talking about, is actually more comfortable to create long back, when that was the only medium and process to approach art. These days it's done intentionally. I mean, like, you can simply go about creating smaller pixel images, but that's an art style, which is why people would go about making it through a crazy process. So I would say that it does help, but at times I can easily tell you, without taking a particular example right in front of me, that every art development style cycle usually starts from some reference points. It's actually good to start from references in certain way. I mean, like, there's a limit. Just don't start copying stuff, but it's always good to explore around and probably decide a start point for your art style, and then work around to polish it and make it feel more unique in some more experiments. So that is something that can be considered. Yeah.
Let's go back to the art style screen, the slide.
The art style one.
Yeah, the art style one that just details the. Thank you. That's all.
Is this the one, or the one before this? This one? Yeah.
When somebody